There's a lot to unpack today with the whole discussion about the US supposedly being low on weapons and sort of dumping Ukraine on Europe.
Yeah, it's quite a bold claim, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's interesting how the narrative frames the decision as a stockpile shortage at home, as Trump said. But then Democrats are accusing the White House of covering up a policy change.
Right. It's almost like a political chess match. One side saying we're low on arms, while the other side argues that it's a deliberate strategy to offload responsibility onto Europe.
Exactly. And it gets wilder when you hear that the Europeans are, well, pretty much behaving as if they're the new arms custodians.
Yeah, indeed. Right. The video even calls them delusional for pretending they could step in. I mean, wouldn't you say that's a little too dismissive?
Well, I get the point. They're highlighting a sort of blame game, where the US shifts the burden to Europe. But I agree, it might be a bit harsh to label Europe outright without considering their own strategic and security challenges.
True. It does raise an eyebrow whether it's fair to oversimplify such a complex geopolitical decision.
Right? And then there's the whole element with Iran. The Europeans and US are now ramping up pressure on Iran to let IAEA inspectors back into facilities, the very ones the US already
Right.
bombed recently.
And that raises another layer of irony, doesn't it? For a while, Iran has made it clear it's not looking to exit the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty or like rush into a nuclear arms race.
Yeah, exactly. Tehran is basically saying, I'm not going to let inspectors back into sites we just had an altercation with, while still claiming its intentions are peaceful.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like, how does this pressure tactic even work when the credibility of the request is so undermined by the recent bombings?
Well, that's the rub, isn't it? It's like on one hand you've got the US and its allies trying to frame Iran as the troublemaker, but on the other hand, Iran's saying, hold up, you're the ones playing rough.
Exactly. It feels so convoluted. You've got these layers where weapon shortages, international diplomacy, and military actions all intertwine.
Yeah, it's like a game of multidimensional chess. And the whole narrative, the way it's being presented, sort of flips depending on which side you listen to.
Right. It definitely does. Do we have any solid evidence that confirms the low stockpile theory, or is it more of a political explanation?
Well, that's a good question. From what I gather, the claim about a low stockpile is coming straight from the US president's statements, but the Democrats counter that with alternative interpretations that suggest it's a cover for abandoning long term support for Ukraine.
I see. And that's where things get messy because it really turns into a debate over whether the policy shift was a strategic withdrawal or an abandonment.
Exactly. And it's interesting, think about it. By shifting responsibility onto Europe, the US might be trying to relieve itself of direct accountability, which then leaves Europe scrambling to define a new role.
Yeah, right? And that in itself has major implications for international alliances. It forces Europe to rethink its defense and strategic collaborations.
Absolutely. And it even questions the credibility of the transatlantic unity. If one partner is seen as offloading responsibility, where does that leave the overall security framework?
Exactly. True. And then there's the Iran side of things. They're not budging on allowing inspectors, which only fuels the narrative that the West's demands might be somewhat self-serving.
Yeah, it's almost like a classic case of do as I say, not as I do. Iran is clearly trying to assert that their commitment to the NPT remains intact, even while all these parts of the story are competing for attention.
Right, indeed. But let me challenge that point a bit. Don't you think that Iran's refusal could also be interpreted as a tactic to negotiate from a position of strength rather than mere defiance?
That's a fair critique. It could be a strategic move, like, we're not going to play by your rules until conditions change for us. Kind of like a defensive maneuver to maintain autonomy.
Absolutely. Exactly. And that ties back to the whole argument about how policies and rhetoric are both tools of power.
For sure. And if you think about it, both the US and Iran are using a kind of spin in their narratives. One is saying we're under resourced, and the other is we're being unfairly pressured.
Right, exactly. It's almost like a battle of narratives where each side is trying to control the story. But what about Europe in all this? Where do they fit?
Good question. Europe is sort of stuck in the middle. On one hand, they are being painted as potential saviors, stepping in to support Ukraine. On the other, they're expected to deliver on demands regarding Iran's nuclear activities.
Yeah, that dual expectation is quite a burden. And frankly, it seems like Europe, while important, may not have the means or the political will to act decisively in either scenario.
Exactly, which further complicates the alliance dynamics. In effect, the US and Europe might be inadvertently pushing each other into corners where expectations become unrealistic.
Absolutely. And that can lead to broader instability, right? If everyone is just trading blame and shirking responsibility, things are bound to spiral out of control in the long run.
Yeah, it creates this vicious cycle of mutual accusations. One side blames the other for strategic missteps, while the other side is left to, clean up the
Exactly.
fallout.
It's like each decision feeds into the next controversy. Speaking of choices, what do you think about the idea that this weapon shortage might, in reality, be more of a manufactured narrative rather than a genuine supply issue?
I think that's a strong possibility. It's not uncommon for political figures to use, crisis language to reshape policy directions. The claim of being low on weapons could be a convenient smokescreen to justify a significant
That makes
strategic
sense.
pivot.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it makes you wonder if the real motive is about international positioning rather than inventory management.
Precisely. And that brings us to the broader theme here: power dynamics. The way these narratives are constructed, it's all about maintaining control, whether it's through rhetorical pressure, strategic alliances, or even calculated military
Absolutely,
actions.
very true. Right, so each move, whether it's the US reallocating weapons or Iran refusing inspector access, is part of a larger game of geopolitical chess.
Exactly. And it sort of shows that in international relations, perception often trumped substance. Decisions are made not solely based on hard facts, but on, the projected narrative and strategic benefits.
Spot on. It really does highlight how intertwined politics, power, and narrative are. And as we watch these events unfold, it'll be interesting to see if any party actually shifts its policy or if this narrative game continues.
Definitely. And while it's easy to get lost in the rhetoric, it reminds us that these decisions have real, tangible impacts on global stability and international relations.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. Well, this gives us a lot to think about, both on the internal dynamics of US policymaking and the broader strategic implications for Europe and Iran.
For sure, and it'll be crucial to keep an eye on how these narratives develop over time. The interplay between political spin and genuine policy challenges is, endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, indeed. No kidding. It's a reminder that sometimes the story we hear isn't the whole story.
Exactly. And as more details emerge, especially regarding weapon stockpiles and diplomatic shifts, we're bound to see further debate and nuance in this ongoing situation.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to that. Well, that was an engaging discussion. Thanks for breaking it down so clearly.
Thank you. And let's keep our eyes on the unfolding narrative. There's always more to learn in the complex dance of global politics.
Definitely. Until next time, stay curious.